Our reading for today's devotion comes from Luke chapter 23, verses 44 through 49. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent." And when all the crowds who had gathered there for this spectacle saw what had taken place, they returned home, beating their breasts. But all his acquaintances, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance, watching these things. Earlier in the week, you have heard that many of Jesus' final words on the cross were songs. They were coming from the Psalms, from the tradition of the songs of David that he would have grown up with. These final words in this series on the words from the cross come from Psalm 31, and I'd like to read you the first 5 verses of that psalm today. In you, O Lord, I seek refuge. Do not let me be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me. Incline your ear to me. Rescue me speedily. Be a rock of refuge for me, a strong fortress to save me. You are indeed my rock and my fortress. For your name's sake, lead me and guide me. Take me out of the net that is hidden for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord, faithful God. Listen to those strong words about God being a refuge, a rock, a fortress. And imagine the young Jesus absorbing those words throughout his youth. Who taught him that psalm? Was it his father? Maybe they were working side by side in the carpenter's shop, building things together and imagining the strong fortress that it was God. Did he recite it, memorize the verses as he was skipping rocks on the lake or throwing stones along the road? Did his mother recite these words before bedtime and so ingrain them in his memory? In speaking these words, Jesus simply did on his very last day and in his last hour what he'd done all his days. And because he had practiced this faith, because he had absorbed these words about active trust in the face of real danger, he could exercise that faith even in the face of his own death. What is the story we tell ourselves daily about who God is and why it matters? What are the words that sustain us, that remind us of our story? What are the psalms and the songs that we sing? Jesus' words from the cross remind us that this active faith is not just a practice for death, that commending our spirit to God and to God's care is a practice for how we live, day to day. And as we shall soon see, it's a practice that leads to life eternal. Thanks be to God.